My cup runneth over. I love that. So, I don't know if you noticed this little thing over here. My daughter collects snow globes, and I suppose it's my fault because I started her collection. So they sit quietly on the shelf until somebody picks it up and shakes it. And the glitter or the snow starts landing on the little surfaces. This is a little angel, and it lands on the head and the shoulders, and it gets exciting as soon as you shake it. And you can see that beauty when things get shaken up. And strangely enough, snow globes remind me of Jesus' teachings. Blessed be the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. These sayings are the Beatitudes, blessings that are given to gather everyone in Jesus' words. Part of the Sermon on the Mount. And scholars say that the crowd that gathered to hear Jesus speak was indeed poor in spirit. Matthew chapter 4 tells us that the crowd was from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and from beyond the Jordan. That would be a mix of Jews and Gentiles, Greeks, and mixed races with one thing in common. They were all oppressed under the Roman Empire. They were poor in spirit, and they were not, I repeat, not feeling particularly blessed. So who were the ones who were feeling blessed during that time? Well, to get a better feel for this, we can turn to another gospel, Luke's gospel. Luke chapter 6. And the gospel writer includes not just the blessed be parts that we hear so often, but we also hear the woe to parts. We don't hear them too often. But these are the people who were feeling particularly blessed at the time Jesus was speaking. Jesus says, "But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for that is what their ancestors did to the false prophets." Well, this does give a hint as to which people were feeling very blessed at that time. It was the rich who already received their consolation, and those who were full and not hungry. It was those who were laughing while others mourned. It was those who were being praised and who were powerful. Those were the people feeling blessed at that time. And those were the people to be, envied in those days. They were in those times and maybe even now. Some of you might identify with this. Sometimes I have what's called an invisible day. I'll get cut off in traffic and I'll joke, "Oh, I must have driven my invisible car today." Or someone will rush by me in a crowd, nearly knocking me to the ground without notice. And I'll joke again, "Perhaps I wore my invisibility cloak today." Makes me feel like a superhero. Not really, right? It feels horrible to be unnoticed. And it's in those moments I find myself struggling with envy. Perhaps if I was in a great big truck, they would have noticed me and not cut me off. Or if I were prettier or skinnier or somebody famous, perhaps they would have noticed me before knocking me over in the hallway. That kind of envy is just a very vulnerable and human emotion. It's normal. I don't think anyone is exempt from those little moments. In the Galilee of Jesus' day, the person to envy might be someone who always seemed to bring in the best catch on their fishing boat. If I only had a bigger boat or someone to help me fish. Or maybe in Jerusalem, the person to envy would be someone who is well-to-do, or even a Roman. If only my family had a little more wealth, I could maybe bring a better offering to the table, at the temple. And maybe those prayers that I feel are unheard will be heard. Jesus was speaking to people with very real hurts and suffering, who only saw the more powerful as being blessed. And that was the way it was, and that's what people were used to thinking and feeling. So the funny thing about snow globes, they usually contain something beautiful inside. My daughter has snowmen and elephants and flowers, and yet any snow globe can sit there pretty much unnoticed until somebody comes along and shakes it up. That beauty comes from the unsettling. The beauty comes from stirring it up. And the Beatitudes to me represent Jesus seeing the beauty that's already there and shaking it up for everyone to see. To put the Beatitudes in another way, we could say, to the poor in spirit, you are beautiful in God's eyes. For you are created in God's image and will inherit that kingdom of heaven. And to those that mourn, you are beautiful in God's eyes, for God has seen your tears and longs to comfort you with loving arms. To those who are meek, you are beautiful in God's eyes, for God has set aside all good things for those who have been waiting so long. To those who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness, you are beautiful in God's eyes, for God seeks to answer your cries for justice, just as God answered the cries to the Israelites in Egypt. To those who are merciful, you are beautiful in God's eyes, for God's own merciful ways long to bring you mercy. To those who are pure in heart, you are beautiful in God's eyes, for when you look in a mirror, you see the loving heart of God. To those who are peacemakers, you are beautiful in God's eyes. God sees you doing God's work to bring the heavenly kingdom. And to those who are persecuted right now for righteous causes, you are beautiful in God's eyes, for God sees your suffering and will not allow that persecution to be victorious. Yes, Jesus tells the crowd that their reward will be great in heaven, but he brings the reward to the crowds immediately, in that moment on the Mount. With the Beatitudes and every single teaching Jesus brings us in the Gospels, he shakes everything up, and the beauty in the people surrounding him, those that have been unnoticed for so long, are noticed. They're not just noticed, but they're called blessed. How can we shake things up like Jesus did? I think, first of all, we're called to open our eyes and see. Let us see the beauty in others. Let us notice those who may otherwise feel as if they're wearing their invisibility cloak that day. God sees their beauty, and so should we. And secondly, if we are the ones feeling like we are invisible, we're reminded to look in the mirror more carefully. That person in the mirror is a divine creation made in God's image. Jesus came to remind us of that image, to live and die in our own human and frail existence, and to rise again to conquer death. So let us be unsettled. Let us be shaken up enough to see the beauty in ourselves and in others. If we notice, our community is a holy and beautiful assembly. Let us always remember that it is so. Amen.